My name is Kurt Williams, and I work with Expedition Overland, and primarily my job is logistics. So I do things like the mapping, the day-to-day routing, where we're heading. I don't really touch any of the cameras because I know that I don't know. In addition to that, I have a Land Cruiser shop in Salt Lake selling parts and accessories for new to old Land Cruisers. So this is the X-Overland. This is a URJ 200. This is a Land Cruiser with the 3UR motor, and it is built quite functional the way it's set up. It tried to be a little lighter weight on this build than some of the previous ones, so it does have a CBI front bumper. You notice it's not a full bull bar, and there's pros and cons to that for animal strikes, for the type of use you're going to be, but this kept it a little simpler. So we got a nice bumper, and one of the biggest reasons to have a bumper is approach angle, of course strength for animal strikes or an accident, but also a place to safely put a winch and structurally put a winch. So you'll notice we've got a worn winch in the front there as well.
So let's talk about overlanding and kind of the connection between Toyota and overlanding. So why do Toyotas and Land Cruisers specifically make such great overland vehicles?
Oh, it's a great question. I think you could come up a handful of reasons, and the first few that pop to mind for me are going to be one, global availability. So for most, when you think overlanding, it could be in your own backyard, in your own state, but also it could be international travel. So when you have people planning a trip through South America or something grander, traveling to Australia or through Europe, Land Cruisers are available and Toyotas are available globally. So parts availability, spare parts, accessories, service. So, you know, they've got a really good network throughout the world of availability of parts and people that, you know their way around them to help you keep them running. But, you know, let's think back more stateside. They're just reliable vehicles. We've all come to love and know Toyotas as really reliable vehicles. And that speaks a lot when you're out in the middle of nowhere, especially traveling in either a small group or often by yourself. You want a vehicle that's gonna not only get you there, but get you home.
And I noticed that you actually kept the parking distance.
For sure.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that's incorporated.
It's nice to have. I mean, let's be real. You're still gonna spend a lot of time driving in and around other cars and parking lots, and it's a big vehicle. So it's good to have those proximity sensors.
Of course, the front camera.
Still runs the front camera and still runs the Toyota cruise control radar system in there as well. We use the Max Tracks when we're stuck, but we use them even more just to level the vehicles. You'll notice this has got a rooftop tent on top. That's where I'll be sleeping tonight. And it is nice to have a level sleep so you're not rolling into your tent mate all night or, you know, getting a head rush from the blood. So we use the Max Tracks just to level out the vehicle. And you can do it with rocks too, but we have these, so it's easy.
And you've really got four to choose from, right? You've got the Tundra, the Tacoma, you've got the 4Runner, and then the one that's like the king of them all, obviously, is the Land Cruiser. Why is a Land Cruiser the king of overlanding?
Well, Land Cruisers are phenomenal vehicles, and I think a lot of it to understand why you climb underneath them and park two vehicles side by side, and you look underneath the Land Cruiser, the CV axles are bigger, the tie rod ends, inners and outers are much bigger, the the frame is a taller, wider frame, and then of course drivetrain wise they've always had fairly beefy drivetrains, bigger axles, 9.5-inch diffs versus 8-inch in the lighter stuff, so just bigger drivetrain components. They are a heavier vehicle, so that doesn't always translate to power to weight ratio doesn't always work in their favor, but for a lot of years Land Cruisers were really torquey tractors, inline 6 motors. With the 100 series in the late 90s and then the 200 series, they've really changed that, so they're still very stalwart drivetrain, but now you've got a lot of power behind them too. So this has got an Icon suspension. Icon builds beautiful stuff. This is a remote reservoir, full coilover setup on the front, and likewise on the rear. These are set up for the added weight we have. This truck does get set up quite heavy, particularly in the rear, where it's got a full drawer system, a goose gear drawer system. And we often have 4 people, all their gear, a lot of camera gear in the back, and the weight on the roof racks. So we've got the ALU boxes. These are brilliant dry storage. that are mounted to the racks. So those...
Do they whistle?
No, don't get much noise out. I mean, any rack, you're going to get noise. So that's something you need to consider on a vehicle before you put a rack on is, can you tolerate the noise? Doesn't bother me because it's a function that I need storage space and I want to have the rack. This is an Easion tent. Easion's a South African company. They've been in the game a long time, like a lot longer than most of the rooftop tents on the market. Because of that, they make one of the best tents on the market. They're very, very tough tents, durable. If you're going to set up a tent 100 nights a year, you're going to want an Easion.
Are those rack rails or are those just steps?
They are a full slider. If you look at them, they're all the way frame tied in. So those are a CBI product. And they do tie in back at the frame. And then a full CBI rear bumper with tire carrier, dual tire carrier swing outs. It does have a drop down table and holds the high lift as well. And this is a big one too, is getting that tire out from underneath. That's not a wrong spot to put it. And I'd say don't let this be a hurdle of getting out, of having your factory spare tire underneath. But there'll be a time and a place where you're done trying to get it out from under there. And especially on a 200, auxiliary fuel tanks always go where the spare tire used to. They're thirsty, so that's a downside. So auxiliary fuel tanks are kind of one of those accessories that people really look at for global travel or long distance overland travel. Even stateside, you can find plenty of places that you got to carry extra fuel with you. This is a camp table that pops down. So you got a nice little camp table, just spring loaded little clips, lights, kind of a camp light for setting up a flood behind you. Yep. And this is a goose gear setups. We got a lower drawer. These are really nice setups. We keep a lot of recovery gear and tools in that one. And this truck is kind of set up, right now it's got a lot of personal gears. We're setting up camp, but our drone box can go right in there. This is usually set up with camber gear. So it's just a real nice sturdy system, and we pack it pretty heavy in there.
What kind of hitch you got? Because I noticed that's an interesting. That's very interesting.
Yes,
tell me about this. And how it attaches.
This is the system that is used by Patriot Campers on all their new models, and they're an Australian-made camper. Yeah, it's a really cool system the way you look at it. It's not a traditional ball. It's not a pintle. It's not like a lock and roll that we've seen a lot, but it locks in really cool. So what it does has this little clip ring groove, and this thing positively engages. So when you're ready to lock it in, this guy swings over and locks into place and gives you like a positive indication that it's fully locked all the time. And then is a full articulating hitch too. So not only do you have this direction, but you're a full articulation in the other directions, which is important for off-road. You look at every big military vehicle and they're using a pintle lunette combo, but they're also clanky too. You get a lot of that clank every time you touch the brakes. And then, you can get sized ones that aren't always the case, but this system is very quiet the way it sets up.
All right, well, let's look at the Patriot Camper while we're here. I mean,
yeah, you bet.
Do a tour of this thing as well.
You bet.
So tell me about this. So you've got, I see gas coming into the grill.
Yeah, this is one of the new Patriot Camper models that are just coming in the U.S. within the last year.
Australian.
Australian-based company that's now distributed in the United States, and they build amazing campers. So these have full onboard water systems, stove systems, gas systems, hot water. So this is kind of a solution provider trailer that does everything, as well as has a tent mounted to the top. So this is a permanently mounted rooftop tent with like kind of a full fold down stand-up area. So we don't have it staked all the way into the ground here, letting it dry out, but you can stand up and change in here, as well as sleep two bodies.
So let's talk about the different series. Obviously, you're deep into the Toyota Land Cruiser world. What's the best series for overlanding? Let's start with what's the most affordable, what's the best, and what's the one you'd recommend? Because there's probably three different answers there.
You're absolutely right. They would be three different answers, and I think the answers will change depending on who you ask. So I'll give you, these are certainly representative of my opinions, but in the US, the 80 series and the 100 series, those two are really hard to beat. Those are going to be like a 1990 to 2007, and of course, the later, the more expensive they're going to be. The 1998 and plus, which is the 100 series, has a V8, so you get a little more power out of it. But the 90 to 97 80 series has been regarded globally as kind of one of the best off-road and overland platforms. Still widely used in Australia and Africa and all over North America. And they've got to the point now where they're affordable to build and pick up used on the secondhand market, though in the recent years, one, because overlanding's gotten so popular, but two, just with a good economy and people looking to get back into 4x4s, Land Cruiser prices in general have all kind of really come up, somewhat artificially. So, I think a lot of people are looking forward to where they reset to mortal levels of, where they should be, but the 80s are still good buys, and as are the later model 100 series. So this one retails, depending on how you've got it set up and dialed in, 42 to 46,000.
All right, walk me through kind of.
Yeah, you bet. We've got Nikki and Rochelle are kind of over here jamming, but we've got a full slide-out fridge system with the sink, so it's all plumbed, ready to go.
How much water can you carry?
Water on board. This one is 38 gallons onboard water, so it's quite a good deal of water. Full fridge system, storage for utensils, and then the drop-down cabinets with all of our cooking, our stove, the full red arc system, so an onboard power control system controls the batteries, the pump, the lights. This is airbag equipped, so we can raise and level the trailer for sleeping and just to get the stove all set up.
I've noticed it on the road and off-road. The suspension seems really well sorted.
Glued, just kind of sticks right behind you. Yeah, you don't feel it tugging at you. You don't feel it swaying. It seems to work really well. And then, you know, despite having the side boxes that you would think take up a lot of room, you peek down the back here, and it still has a great deal of storage in the back.
Yeah, so high lift.
Yeah, we got our high lift in there. We've got all our chairs in there for the full group. It does have a full bottom drawer that pulls out too, so we've got gear and tools in there. Stores all the poles. Yeah, and then it has its own spare tire mount on the back, so you're not leaving home without a tire.
Canopy,
full awning, a full
How long does it take to set up?
The awning a couple minutes, the tent 5-10 minutes. So, I mean, you can have this thing fully deployed and be cooking in, I'd say, 15-20 minutes. And the 100 introduced independent front suspension. So for the 80 series guys, I thought that was the end of the world. But you know, you spend a lot of time on the roads like we have the last few days and traveling the west and down to Baja. The IFS isn't that bad. In fact, it's quite nice to be able to really fly down washboard roads. The handling's great and it's strong. The modern IFS suspensions hold up just fine.
All right, so the most affordable, the early series. How about the ones that you'd recommend?
Well, I love 200 series, and you know, of course, it's the latest. That's going to be a 2008 and later, but they're still in the, you know, you're paying $25,000 for a pretty high mile beat up one, possibly, all the way up to $84,000 for a brand new one. So that's probably the highest price, but it's got that 3UR, that 381 horsepower V8. It's still a very stalwart drivetrain, but very comfortable to drive on and off road. But don't discount the older ones, the 60 series. It's the round headlights back in the, that's going to be an 80s era from 1980 to 89. Those are great off-road vehicles, and people have, circled the globe with them and proven that you don't have to have power everything and even a super powerful motor to, get around the globe. So,
all right, the last thing we got to do is we got to show them what it looks like inside the tent.
You bet. Ladies, are we welcome in there? Are we okay? All right, we are welcome.
Let's see we'll put the bed up here.
Okay.
You want the bed up first before you go in, or do you want to see it unfolded?
Yeah, I'll see it unfolded.
Yeah, Clay can I can demo it unfolding.
I'll stay out here. I don't want to get it dirty. I want to stay out here because
no worries.
So you got another storage area.
You do have another pantry side on this side.
Yep.
Yeah, quite roomy.
Yeah,
I mean, nice to be able to stand up and change.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And the bed gets bigger.
Is that like a king size or queen size?
King size.
King size. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Locks in to provide kind of support for that cantilever part. Mattress folds over and you got a king. So while it doesn't have AC, it does have a full Webasto heater system that also ties into the hot water system built into the trailer. So hot and cold water and a heater.
So let's talk mods. Obviously you sell Toyota parts.
Yeah.
What's like the most essential mod? If you're going to go and get one, what's the most essential? What would you start with?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say for the type of travel that I like to do, and I'd say we like to do, is going to be a suspension. You can go a long ways without aftermarket bumpers. You can go a long ways without a rooftop tent. A good ground tent still can, camp everywhere you need to. But a good suspension to be able to carry, decent speeds and decent load. Because when you think of living out of your vehicles, you add a lot of stuff to them. Not just on the outside, but more importantly on the inside. And that added payload, an aftermarket suspension, goes a long way to keeping you comfortable behind the wheel. And that's especially true for older leaf-sprung vehicles like the 60 series. They benefit a lot from a better suspension that you can put some good seat time in and not feel like you need a kidney belt all day.
And is there one you recommend?
Well, I'm a big fan of the old man Emu suspensions at a starter level, and then work your way up depending on the speed you like to drive, the conditions, and Icon makes a fantastic suspension. We've done a lot with them and had a great success. And there's a lot of good ones out there. It depends really on the model and then budget. You got to look at your cross-section of how much you want to, can afford to spend on a suspension and the way you're going to use it. I think a lot of times people put an emphasis on spending as much as they possibly can on their suspension, and they could probably spend a little of that money on fuel and just go do a trip. Don't let that be your hurdle to going out.
So let's just talk about money, because people always like to know that, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Land Cruiser is 80.
Well, a new Land Cruiser off the showroom floor is going to be in the low 80s. so an Easy On tent's gonna be anywhere from $1,500 to $3,000 depending on their model. They have a lot of sizes. They have hard shell and they have the soft shell tents as well. Bumpers can easily range from $1,500 to $4,500 in bumpers, you know, a single.
I'm gonna say you got at least 100,000, if not more.
Yeah, that'd be a fair guess into this truck.
Another 50 here. So we're looking at a $150,000 rig, which is about the cost of a G-Wagon.
It's not far off, yeah, I mean, right.
So you can have this
or a G-Wagon. This is extremely functional, so 4 people live out of this on the road. We've driven this exact Land Cruiser to the tip of South America. We took this on our South America expedition to Ushuaia, and didn't skip a beat. This thing took it everywhere we wanted to, and yeah, got us home safely. So that's a win.
Yeah, part of the fun obviously is modding it, right? So
it is. Yeah.
Becomes, I thought you were going to say rooftop tent, because it seems to be like the rooftop tent is now the official poster child for overlanding, right?
It certainly has become that way, and I started with my first rooftop tent, 13 years ago.
Okay.
And I loved them, and I was the guy saying, you gotta get one of these, you gotta try this is cool. And in my personal Land Cruiser, I don't have a rooftop tent. I have a sleeping platform in the back and I sleep inside. And I still like rooftop tents. They're great, get a great night's sleep in them, but you know, it's just less room on the roof rack, and they do come with their trade-offs too. So because I am usually 1 or 2 people, maybe up to 2 or 3 inside my vehicle, I don't ever feel like I need that room up on the roof rack for, you know, put a tent up there. It's better for me to put storage and boxes and you know, gear on the inside that's secure, and I either sleep in a ground tent or I sleep on the roof rack a lot.